that man won't be able to take on multiple women and have a successful relationship because he's not having a successful relationship with one. They might still be in it, right? But that doesn't mean that it's successful, right? Like that's the thing is like we hear women talk all the time about, well, like the fact that you're married doesn't mean anything, right? It's that we're looking for the success in that relationship. And for people to have a successful relationship, it requires a certain level of communication. And the one thing, because HD was talking about stats earlier, over the course of the pandemic, Black women enrolled in therapy, right? Sure, yes, not all of them stayed in it. Sure, yes, some of them were like, accountability averse and stuff like that. But the thing is that there is a large population of women who are seeking that healing, right? Black women already outnumber Black men. And now you're going to be introducing potentially more healed Black women into the dating market with Black men who may not be seeking healing, right? So, with that, what does that landscape look like where now this healed woman is potentially re traumatizing herself, potentially suffering more relational trauma in relationship to men who aren't healed? Like, should there not be another option where she still can be covered by a man who's adequate? Or are we just going to segregate all of the good men to just one woman?
I agree. I have another question about polygamy, but it's off, so I'm gonna wait until after this. But I agree with what you're saying. That's another point for polygamy. The healed men, and you know what? I think that it will actually serve as a positive reinforcement. You know, if these men are the ones getting two wives, what are the characteristics of this man who is afforded the ability to have two wives? You know, and so that may get other men to be like, oh, because then that'll take those women off of the market, assuming they're
Yeah.
not cheaters.
I mean, but I don't know. It one of the things I've observed is that this world, we have like this kind of funny math that occurs, and then everything kind of evens out. Like, so I even see what you're saying, where there are a lot of traumatized women, but what I'll say is the trauma affects men and women different, a little bit different, and there's also a group of women that purposely fed into the things that traumatize them, because let's say the upbringing is the same, right? Lack of father or whatever, and those people, so a lot of those people still get married. They still find a role model or an example, and that person wills them and propels them into wanting to do the things that they did, i.e., get married, go to college, so on and so forth, lead a purposeful life. And some of them are successful at it. But then we have this other group of women that chose the toxicity for themselves. And yes, they do need to be healed, but I don't think a lot of the toxicity is marketed to men in the same way. So I think we have an abundance, like right now we have an abundance of women that did seek therapy and that are healed, and on the woman's side, and a bunch of incels on the men's side. You see what I'm saying? Like,
But that's the thing, right? Is like I totally agree with you that traditionally trauma forged men, right? That was like part of the rites of passage of going from a
yeah,
boy to a man was trauma.
that's a good way to say it. Yeah,
Unfortunately, right now with the growth of the red pill space and the amount of incels that exist, that's no longer the reality. What's happening is that we're having more and more men exist who are out of control with their emotions, whose trauma is affecting them very similarly, at least in expression wise, the way it traditionally affects women.
okay.
Now I can't
And then
counter that
refusing
point that you just
therapy.
made.
Sorry.
Oh, you finish your point.
I just wanted to add to say, like, and then refusing or demonizing therapy. So they're not actually seeking the things, and it doesn't have to be talk therapy, but they're not seeking the assistance that they need to process in order to be forged into what we consider a man.
Hmm,
Now
that's
I
true.
can't counter the point that you just made as far as like what you were just saying. Now this is something that I want to point to. I don't think women. I think women underestimate their abilities to really affect the changes that they're looking for in men. And there was a clip that I saw where it was Iana Van Zet and this woman who had she was with her husband and her husband had a kid, right? And she kept pointing out, hey, the child that's not my child, it's your child, right? Iana just moved this girl to the side, move right off to the side. Sat that girl down to the side. She sat next down to her husband, talked to this man, rubbed on him. Like this man started crying. Like
Mm,
I was
I remember that.
let me tell you something. Women, and you're saying that when what is it? You're saying that there'll be more healed women than healed men. Let me tell you something. There is nothing more effective than a woman that knows how to use her words to get what she wants.
Mm.
I'm telling you, there's like
But
the
but
way.
that's not necessarily being healed. That's cunning.
Well,
Let's even
but if it's healed and she's cunning enough and smart enough to understand how this man works, and she structures her statements to this guy to make him feel, because listen, let's think about this. Like something as simple as telling a man to take out the trash. How you do that makes it a chore or makes it like an honor. Like we're still taking out the trash when you tell us to do it, right? But how you say it, how you articulate that point can turn that mundane task that we're just doing it so she can shut up, right? Or I'm just doing it just because the trash need to be taken out. Or it's like, man, like it's an honor to be able to do this service, to do this thing, just because of how you make me feel when you ask me to do certain things. Like the power of a woman's tongue, like how she speaks, how she articulates, how she shows her care, admiration, respect, and honor to you, even doing the most simplest of tasks. I'm telling you, y'all women don't understand how powerful y'all can be. Y'all can never lift a single thing in this world, but yet your words can help build an entire nation by how you talk to people. I'm telling you,
So
it's a game changer.
I uh, I totally agree with you, right? I think a lot of women do know that. I think some women get in their own way. But to what Shan said, that superpower can be used for good or it can be used for evil because some of the women who are very good at that are scammers, are sex workers, right? There comes a point in time where a man who's healed understands when a woman is using that tool to manipulate and not encourage. When we're talking about the men who are equipped to take on multiple women, they understand that distinction because they also understand that inviting the wrong woman into that dynamic blows up multiple families, not just one. We have men terrified of getting married because one woman will blow up their spot. One woman blowing up multiple spots is an even bigger risk to take on. It's way
no, don't do it. No.
so what I'm talking about in terms of healed, like there's no numbers to it, right? It's just the fact that there is now an influx of women who are interested in healing themselves, who are journeying to healing themselves.
Yeah.
Sure, you lose people along the way, right? We saw a
Yeah.
couple weeks ago that therapist talk about women who left therapy because they didn't want to handle accountability, right?
Yep.
Not all women stick it through, but that number is going to be growing because more women are going to stick it through. And
Yeah.
what does the dating pool look like for those women?
So here's the interesting thing. I'm telling you, it
I
is
have a
not.
question about this though. Go ahead,
Yeah.
Mike.
It's not as lopsided as we think. I think we have a large enough group of men because what we usually tend to say is that there are more women, that there are men, but what we keep forgetting is that The same way we deem most men not marriageable, the same goes for the women. Their mindset, it was not targeted towards marriage before. A lot of people are getting healed for self-preservation.
They are.
Okay, I don't know if y'all caught any part of my show today where I
Self
played that.
love.
Exactly. I played that clip of this old lady. Did you see it on my IG? Just crying. I don't want to be alone. And all. Well, the one question we failed to ask is, what were you doing at the young age? She looked like she's anywhere between 60 and 70. What were you doing in your 30s that led you into this? So some
Especially in
of
that
them,
day
yeah,
and age.
yeah. And so that's something. Well, I keep forgetting to say that when we have these discussions, that if we know that a lifelong, I'm sorry, basically 0 to 18 upbringing is really what prepares the large majority of women to take on the role of wife, then a lot of these women aren't prepared for it. They're getting healing just to be functional in the world, just to stop losing jobs, stop snapping at cooperative men that don't deserve it. Right? They're just fighting to become functional members of society who don't fail repeatedly. Right? So I think we have another hill to climb before we get to these group of women are eligible to be wives. And I'm not saying that there are a bunch of men that are eligible to be husbands. I'm saying I think somehow we just kind of end up in the middle. There's just a bunch of men who are sort of incels right now, but they've always been kind because they couldn't get no ass. They're definitely willing to be monogamous. They're ready to do that for one woman. Like most men are in the middle class. They put a roof over their head, pay their own insurance and all that, and they're like, I'll take on a wife. I'll absolutely do it.